This episode, historical homes in historical districts. Well, John asked me a question. Have you ever worked on a historical home? All I said was, ugh, we're going to discuss.
Welcome to the Handyman Pros radio show. Home improvement and maintenance tips from the pros.
Thanks for listening to another edition of the Handyman Pros radio show, and where our goal is to help save you time, money, and aggravation on your home maintenance and repair. This edition is entitled Historic Homes in Historic Districts. And to help me explain, I'm here with my ever cheerful and historic old dude named John. Johnny, what is going on
Well,
this
that's
week?
it. Yeah, I'm historic, all right.
Here he is. He's a legend. He's a legend.
The old Rodney Dangerfield, when I die, I'm going to donate my body to science fiction.
That's right.
So, Larry, I was watching, I can't remember, it was some, popular YouTube something show, and they're out of Boston, always doing they're working in a historic district. And I always thought,
Yeah.
I wonder what that's like, because man, there's so much stuff to keep it, to not get too raw there, but in these homes,
Yep.
that are all custom and everything, and all the regulations. So that's when I asked you if you've ever worked on a historic home. And go ahead, you said
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said no. I said yes, no, is what I said. But the answer is yes. I have worked on historic homes in historic districts, and we're gonna start with the very basics. Okay, so I grew up in a home that was built in 1812. It was not in a historic district, but it was built in 1812. So as I got thinking about this, John is going to has to keep me on the rails once we get to the part of the district itself. But before that, we're going to talk about just old homes. Okay. So if you have an old home, you have to understand there's some things about old homes that are different than modern homes. And it's very, very much about lumber and square. And no old home that I've ever worked on is square anymore. It's moved a little bit. So nothing is square, which is a challenge in and of itself. The other thing is there's different construction methods depending on the era of when the home was built, there's different methods of how things were put together. And one has to understand that the wood that they used is radically different than the wood you use today, both in dimension and quality. It's just not the same. First off, most of it was true dimension lumber, not what we do today, which is planed lumber, which is much smaller. So a 2x4 back then was a 2x4. It was 2 inches by 4 inches. It's not 1.5 by 3.5. Okay. So you have these kinds of issues to deal with. Secondarily, there were materials that were used that are no longer used. So you're trying to match things and you're trying to do things. And brother, it's a bloody old challenge. I mean, it's a challenge. Just those things alone are enough of a challenge, right? John, you've worked on houses with horsehair plaster, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that fun?
No.
No,
No.
it's
And,
not fun.
I'm glad I don't have to do that anymore, really.
Well, we're fortunate. We just had a little technical issue, but I'd asked Johnny about horsehair plaster, and he said yes, he's worked on it. And all I wanted to say was that there's a whole lot of challenges involved with material changes and things as far as the older the home gets to the newer homes, and even into like homes that aren't even that old, say 1950s, 1960s, 1970s. There's just a lot of different things that were used then that aren't used now, and it can lead to some challenges. So those are some of the first initial things about dealing with older, and particularly older historic homes in historic districts. Johnny, you have anything to add to that one? You've worked on some older homes.
I've
You
worked
worked
on
on
older
your
homes, and
own home.
everything is, yeah. I mean, everything is a challenge to match up to. I mean, geez, I mean, it's everything. I'm not gonna go reiterate everything you just said, but it is true. It's a challenge.
Yeah. And this is before we get into, so now let's talk about historic districts. So my brother owned a home in a historic district, and he wanted to do a renovation on the home because his home was built in, I want to say, the 1830s, 1840s, something like that. And honestly, the house did not have running water when it was built, and it had been added on to over the years before it was put in this historical district. And these houses become, how do we want to say it, Johnny? Over the years, kind of Frankenhouses, right? I mean, they're
So,
in so many ways.
so let's kind of, when we talk about historic districts, um, what is the meaning of a historic district, and where
Uh,
might you find one?
so I'm gonna just kind of paraphrase this idea. Probably we should Google this and actually give the actual thing. But most historic districts are in places of they're in places where homes are they're trying to maintain the flavor of the old
That's right.
district of the home. The place that both you and I know that's the most for John and I that we have commonality on is Key West, Florida. So there's a historic district in Key West, Florida. It's called Old Key West, and they want to keep the flavor of the old town Key West. And it because there's some really cool homes and really cool architecture in that particular portion of Key West. And there are places all over the country where they have these historic districts that the idea is to keep it as original as possible. Um, so with am I missing anything there,
No,
John? I
no,
mean,
no, and,
what
and
you
I
think?
think it's one of these things. For when you, to me, the historic district is, you walk down the street or you drive down the street and it looks like it did in the 1850s,
Whatever. Yeah.
whatever the time period
Whatever
was.
they're trying to
Yeah, yeah,
And I do wanna clarify one thing. I wanna talk about who they are. Well, they is usually the local it can be a number of different groups, but it can be a local historical group, it could be the local government, it could be usually it's somebody that has no stake in the property. I mean, I'm gonna cut to
yeah,
the chase. They have
yeah.
no
It's
stake
a
in the property.
preservation type of.
It's some sort of preservation group and
Yeah.
usually they impose governmental regulations upon you to keep these places historic. And that's where you start to run into the real challenges on these historic properties. And again, I had said these homes are generally kind of Franken homes because if you're trying to, and I say Franken home, and I'm going to explain that a home that was built in 1850 had no electricity. It had no internal plumbing. It had uh, it probably didn't even have drywall or any kind of mud and plaster. They usually in those homes in that era were built with wood paneling on the inside, actual dimensional wood. Um, so because we need to update and we live in a modern world, they've now added electricity and plumbing and more modern materials and things, and they kind of become this Frankenstein type technical issues here. It's the first time we've had technical issues in a long time, but anyway, um, so anyway, you have these homes that have been updated into more modern things, and those are challenges enough. Now you have people wanting to impose things over the top of that want to keep the home the way it was. And the problem with that is that sometimes the laws and the things that they want you to do are so incredibly costly that it almost makes it not worth it to do it. And in a lot of these cases, I mean, I've seen many, many so-called historic. Key West is actually one of them, Johnny. I was down there one day. I'm looking. They're trying to redo this home, and the historic district is out there. They're telling the contractor, "You can't do that. That's not the way the house was." And the guys look. I mean, honest to God, the walls are rotted out at the bottom. They're falling apart, and he's trying to shore up the internal structure of the home, and the historical district is telling him that he can't do it that way, and he's like, "Then you tell me how to do it." And the answer was, they don't have an answer. So, what they want and what they get are 2 different things. I guess the situation with historical districts is you really have to read how involved is the historic preservation group involved. Do they want just the outside to look the same? Some of them, it depends where you are, outside, inside, they get their scope is too broad in my opinion. So sometimes and I get the exterior that they want to keep the homes to the original flavor and all that kind of thing, but that sometimes even then sometimes gets to be a little untenable because products are no longer available is part of it.
I mean,
It's kind of like having an HOA on steroids is what
yeah,
it is.
yeah. Well, you've got, multiple HOAs in that case. You've got the
Correct.
government, you've got the preservation, you've got a heritage type place, or
Yep.
organization. You've got But I know that like in the district that you're talking about, they've got all that ginger board
Yep.
on those
All that
shutters and all that kind of
sure.
stuff. And I mean, it's really cool. But I remember, every time I drive around there or bicycle through there or whatever I'm doing there, there's always somebody on a ladder. Seems like they're working on something,
Something. Yeah.
to make it, like you said, for compliance. And it
Well,
all
and
has to
and
be done the way it, the way these organizations want those old homes, the way they were originally
the way
built.
they want them, the way they want them
Yeah,
to look, and and just back on the construction side of it, a lot of that work was done on an individual basis. So it
yeah,
wasn't like you went down to the local sawmill and bought the products. That stuff had a lot of that gingerbread work and stuff, that was all done by hand. So when the historic district wants you to come in and make it the way it was, or they want you to match it, that art has largely been lost. I mean, there's people that do it, but it's all they do. And how do we want to say this? They get paid for their
uh,
knowledge on this one, and
it
their
just
skill
comes
set.
it brings to mind, let's say and I don't want to go off on a tangent here, so
Right,
I'm gonna bring this back. But
right.
the Notre Dame Cathedral there that got burned down, and they had all
Yep,
those guys from all over the world
yep.
that knew those techniques. We're working on that thing to bring it back up to its original, and that's what, now let me bring it back. So that's what we're talking about here, because a lot of this is truly a craftsmanship that that's if you can find somebody that even can do it.
Yeah, can you even find somebody that can do it? I mean, yet you can. The question is where in the literally where in the world are they? And what's that gonna cost? And
Right.
that's where you get into this whole, it's a financial thing. If money is not an issue, go for it, right? Go for it. But
Hey,
for
you know
most people, yikes.
that's a good point, because this is not like your first time home buyers type of thing. This is,
Yeah,
somebody who's got a lot. This is a labor of love, and money is no object for a
correct.
lot of this.
Yep.
There are certain districts that I've seen, let's say up in Boston, that might be on the verge of this kind of historical district and things. And
Right.
when these kids get these homes, um, they're in for a little bit of a shock, because they can't just run down and put any old doors on.
Right. It's all that kind of thing. And here's the other side to this. A lot of these homes are incredible values to buy. Like you sit there and go, "Man, I can buy this home for, $100,000." It's like, "Yes, be very careful because that $100,000 is going to equate out to about, I don't know, maybe a million. It could
Right.
be that much. I mean, it can be a lot more. It depends. It depends. There's so many variables that it can be very bad. But I'll give you an example in Macon, Georgia, down around Mercer University. They had a whole bunch of old historic homes, and they're really nice homes. They're beautiful, they're that way. And they wanted to refurbish that area and kind of bring it back to the not the
in
splendor that it was, but they wanted them to be
in
nice
in
homes.
that time era type of.
Yeah, yeah, and they really it wasn't necessarily a historic district, but the whole purpose of if you were gonna buy one of the homes, you weren't gonna tear it down and put a McMansion up, you were gonna restore the home that was there, and that was the extent of the project. Well, the base problem was is that and they sold these houses for, like, $10,000. They literally were very, very inexpensive. But but by the time you got done, you were gonna have almost $400,000 in the home because of just the true logistics of fixing that old house. It's like in the commercial world, they don't redo old shopping malls because it's just downright cheaper to rip the old one down and put a new one up.
Right.
It's just money. And that's one thing is a caution that's a caution on these historic homes. You look at these older homes, and we've even seen that in our rental business. We're buying these homes that were built in the 50s and 60s, and they're decent homes, but dude, don't kid yourself that because the house is $25,000 that it's move-inable. It's not,
Yeah.
there's so much
Right.
else. And if I didn't do the work myself, they probably wouldn't be economically viable for me to do as a rental house. But because I do the work myself, there's no labor cost, and so I'm buying materials, so it
Yeah.
works. I mean, I can just tell you this is really from personal experience, you know, but if there's a true historic district over on it, boy, really read the fine print. It is one of those things, read the fine
Yeah.
print. What are you
Yeah.
getting yourself into? Because you can get yourself into a mess, and once you're into the mess, it's very difficult to get out of the mess.
Yeah, that was another thing I took away from, if I'm remembering correctly, of this story I was watching. This young couple who had bought a house in a historic district, and I think it was in
Yep.
Boston.
Yep.
And when they had those guys in there, they're like, yeah, this, that, and the other, and that was quite a
Yeah.
shock to these younger folks that you just can't go down and buy any lamp, anything that you just want to slap in there. I mean,
Right. Right.
everything had to be pass
Period.
muster on that. So
Yeah. Yep.
that's good advice. When you
Yeah, and you really have to read those details because some are and some aren't, right? So some are and some aren't. When I say that, what I mean is it's just the exterior, right? So you just have to keep the exterior in that period type thing. Others are much more specific. They want interiors to be period specific too. And those are ones that I definitely run far, far away from personally because I'm not getting into it. That becomes a labor of love and it is an expensive labor of love to boot. So even exterior can be challenging enough, because it's just challenging. It's like all the things we've talked about, getting materials, getting craftsmen to work on this stuff that can still do it because not these are lost arts. You
yeah,
know,
that's it.
you and I are aviation guys, right? And
Yeah,
we always talk. We love these World War II airplanes, right? Well, what's the problem with restoring a World War II airplane? Nobody knows how to work on that stuff
right,
anymore.
right,
Everybody's dying. The
right,
old guys are dying.
right.
And you're an A&P mechanic, and even yet you
Yeah,
happen to know the timing on a radial engine, but you're one of the last ones. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
I mean, stuff
It
like that. There's all
it
this
it
stuff
is
that
it is
gets
like that.
lost.
I mean, everything is really expensive, and I will tell you though that it is quite of attraction to go into some of these districts. Though we can kind of start to
Oh,
wrap this up. It's so cool. I wish that I could when you go down there, I'll just say this. I'd love to walk in some of these homes just to see. I mean,
see what they
something
look like. Yeah.
something that's out of the 1920s, or I mean, something that's those or earlier in the 1800s, the way people might have those homes inside. It must be something really to see.
I love those old homes. I mean, personally, I love them because I grew up in one, and our house had 7-foot ceilings because people weren't as tall. You go down to
That's yeah
Savannah,
that's the
Georgia,
that's the other
you know?
thing, right?
Yeah.
They weren't designed.
No.
The older the home is, they weren't designed with those kind of things, so
Well, and they were designed with different parameters involved. They like heating sources, for example, they were designed to be heated with firewood, and that's a very
right
different design
right
parameter than
right in
what
the
we do
middle,
today.
right in the middle of a
Exactly.
room or something, and you blew out so much heat you didn't need to worry about insulation. You just
Correct. Yeah, it just goes on and on and on. So it's
yeah,
just kind of a thing of like, and trust me, I love the homes. Don't get me wrong.
yeah.
I think they're so cool, and I really do. But do I want to own one? Probably not. Not anymore. Maybe when I was 20 or 30, but not
It
now.
is that is good as we start to wrap up here. I've been in some homes back in, I think it was the 1840s and stuff, way down here down south.
Yep.
What was left standing, anyways. And
Right. Different
but
question.
some of the homes that you can tour have
Right.
been restored exactly like they were, with the exact furniture,
Yep.
and it is truly amazing when you walk into some of these places how small the doors were.
They're small. Well, people were smaller.
And even with the hoop skirts to get through those doors, and the chairs were short.
They were short
It's
because
just an
people were
incredible.
shorter.
It's really, you walk in, you feel like Andre the Giant walking
Yep.
through there. Like you're going to hit your head.
Yep.
It's just, really is it's fascinating to go through these things, and
it's a bit of a history lesson.
It is, and folks, if you ever get a chance to do that and take a tour and listen to the history of the building and what all how these doors, these 6-panel doors came to be, it's really fascinating. So
if you're into such things,
if you're into such things, well, we're all into. If you're listening to this podcast, you're into homes and things. Yeah, probably find that fascinating. But
Johnny,
yeah.
so I have a thing. So the other day I found this vintage spacecraft.
Area 51, Roswell.
Strangely, that's where it was. Right. And the guy was telling me, it's like, I'm talking to the guy saying, well, what do you want for the thing? And he goes, oh, it'll be about Roswell 54. I was like, oh, okay, whatever, I'll pass. Anyway.
Yeah, I'll pass. Yeah. Can you restore this thing? No. But all right, Larry. Good discussion on these historic districts and the challenges there. Boy, I'll tell you.
We didn't even get off the rails.
No, we didn't get off the rails. So that was good. We've been pretty good, except for one show that we went way off the rails, and we will never talk about that again. That one's locked away. So
we do talk about it because it's worth it. Anyway, questions, comments, and concerns, questions at handymanprosradioshow.com. Johnny, take us home, baby.
All right, folks. Have a great week. And if you can do a little research on some historic districts, do it. I think you'll find it fascinating. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time on the Handyman Pros Radio Show.